President of the United States.
Tonight, President-elect Joe Biden, the Democrat, becomes the 46th President of the United States, winning the election after days of counting and controversy. We'll have special extended coverage this evening. The current president stands defiant, tweeting that he won the election by a lot, as thousands celebrate the beginning of the end of the Trump era. We'll have the latest live pictures and protests and riots from both sides over the past few days, many saying that democracy in America is hanging by a thread. Good evening, it's just past 7:45pm here in Melbourne. Thanks for your company on this very busy Sunday evening. Let's get straight to that massive story. Breaking overnight, Joe Biden become the 46th President of the United States after claiming the state of Pennsylvania and its 20 electoral college votes. Let's go live to our US correspondent Jackson Gosnell, who's standing by for us this evening. Jackson, what has the reaction been to the results so far?
Leo, voting concerns continue to arise here in America. Joe Biden has been elected 46th President of the United States, according to some news outlets. However, President Trump will not concede. He says that he is the true winner of this election. His supporters are very upset. Now, Joe Biden, on the other hand, is giving remarks saying that he will lead America and be a president for everyone, not just those who voted for him. Now, it is worth mentioning that President Trump has mentioned that there is voter fraud represented in this election. A lot of people say that that is untrue. However, it is worth looking at, and that is why the Trump campaign has filed several lawsuits in many states alleging voter fraud. In some circumstances, poll watchers were not allowed to watch ballots be counted and opened. Only Democrats were allowed to do that. Republicans were denied access in some states, according to the Trump campaign. This election is certainly a mess here in America. People are happy, people are sad, a lot of mixed emotions. Though some sources did declare Biden as a winner for this, the media is not able to officially call a winner. There must be official election results. I predict that this election will be ongoing, and we may not know, according to a political scientist who I spoke with earlier today, we may not know who the next president is going to be until just days before the inauguration because of all of these lawsuits and recounts in many states. Reporting in the U.S., I'm Jackson Gosnell, 6 News.
Alright, Jackson Gosnell live for us in our US Bureau tonight, thank you. Meanwhile, the current president, Donald Trump, is standing defiant, tweeting earlier today that he won the election by a lot following days of his demands that the vote be stopped, and adding that there's fraud involved. Here at home, our leaders have congratulated President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris on their projected wins. PM Scott Morrison writing that Australia wishes them every success in office, adding that he looks forward to working with them closely as we face many of the world's challenges together. Opposition leader Anthony Albanese also congratulated the pair on their victory, tweeting that their agenda was based on decency, honest government, creating opportunity, and dealing with the pandemic and the challenge of climate change. New Zealand PM Jacinda Ardern wrote, "With so many issues facing the international community, your message of unity is one we share." And our former PM Malcolm Turnbull also congratulated them, adding, "What a relief, you have won." And there have been massive celebrations from the American public as well, including outside Biden's home in Wilmington, Delaware, as you can see in the pictures there. Now, this was a scene from earlier today outside the White House, thousands celebrating the victory. It's a little bit quieter now if we take a look at a live shot of the White House, but we have seen reports that there are still many people in the area and out on the streets. The election has obviously been massive news across the globe, with the New York Times front page from today simply writing Biden beats Trump, while also mentioning the record voter turnout. And meanwhile, the New York Post decided to use a famous Trump quote for its front page, writing, "You're fired." And people have also watched US election coverage from their TV screens, with millions tuning into CNN and other cable networks. Chief reporter Jack Hahn looks at how the world reacted to Biden's victory.
India to Iraq, South Africa to Seoul.
워싱턴 연결해서 자세히 알아보겠습니다. 강태욱 특파원.
네, 워싱턴입니다.
The world eyes the White House and who will win the race to live there. The prize for the winner, the most powerful office in the world. And that calls for some powerful worldwide coverage. CNN, the network of choice for affiliates globally, with it being rebroadcast into over 200 countries.
Welcome to our viewers here in the United States and around the world.
Its news source agreement seeing the cable news network rebroadcasted on 2 of our 3 main networks.
We're joined by CNN's chief national correspondent, the great John King.
Those on the right and left agree CNN is king of coverage because of John King.
Why does this matter? Because this could be the decisive day in this long count.
Commended for his little sleep and big task of explaining the complexity of the US election.
Remember, this is unusual in American politics. Hillary Clinton wins the popular vote 4 years ago, but loses the election because Donald Trump won the states that matter. We go state by state, the so-called Electoral College.
Domestically in the United States, CNN and Fox News have beaten the traditional dominant commercial networks of ABC, NBC and CBS. A stark contrast to the 2016 election where NBC led with 12 million viewers. Now, first place was Fox News with 13 million and NBC with just over 5 million. But all eyes were on when the US networks cut away from a presidential press conference.
Okay, here we are again in the unusual position of not only interrupting the President of the United States, but correcting the President of the United States.
There's a lot to unpack here and a lot to fact check in real time. And this is really important because the stakes are so high in this presidential election.
What a sad night for the United States of America to hear.
A polarising move in a country where there is little middle ground for the media. Back home, our politicians, polar opposite from polarising, playing the game safe.
I meant for Australia, we've got no better friend in the world than the United States. We've worked with different administrations there. They've worked with different parties in power here. And whatever the outcome, our friendship will be as strong as ever.
The world will continue to watch the race for the White House as the greatest political show nears the end of its final act. Jack Hahn, 6 News.
Well, earlier a riot was declared in Portland, Oregon, as thousands of people took to the streets demanding that every vote in the election be counted. Meanwhile, a different protest was held in Arizona with Trump supporters demanding that the vote counting be stopped. Reporter Connor Alfagay has the details.
For the 5th consecutive month, civil unrest continues in America. In the first post-election riots in the US in decades, democracy is exposing division in a country suffering from extreme political polarization. Storefronts have been boarded up with plywood, a non-scalable fence erected at the White House, where anti-Trump riots are taking place. In Arizona, armed protesters surrounded Fox News, which preemptively declared that Biden had won. Protests also erupted outside election facilities. Trump supporters, fueled by his claims the elections were rigged.
I don't have a problem with all the votes being counted. I don't think any of us do, as long as they're legitimate votes. That's the problem.
Election officials now concerned for the safety of their staff following threats and gatherings of angry protesters outside their doors. Earlier, police arrested 2 armed men who they allege were planning to storm a vote-counting centre in Philadelphia. From the Biden camp, protesters are demanding that every vote is counted.
It is despicable what they did election night. The mainstream media took over the narrative. They shut down the counting of the voting.
Perhaps less well known, there are peaceful demonstrations also occurring across the country. Joe Biden has called for calm as unrest flares up in the United States.
I ask everyone to stay calm, all the people to stay calm. The process is working.
And our electoral process is being ripped to shreds by a bunch of banana republic socialists.
Meanwhile, Trump continues to call the system rigged and fraudulent on Twitter almost every hour. Whichever way you look at it, democracy is going up in flames. Connor Alforque, 6 News.
To other news, and Victoria's COVID-19 hotel quarantine inquiry has recommended the use of an improved hotel and home-based quarantine for returning international travellers ahead of a return of flights from New Zealand to Melbourne from Monday. The inquiry, which is being led by retired Judge Jennifer Coate, has released an interim report with a total of 69 recommendations about the future of quarantine in the state after a number of failures that eventually led to Victoria's second wave. Police have been recommended to have a 24/7 presence at all facilities, while the inquiry added that any model needs to have clear lines of ministerial responsibility and a public health focus, while also detailing that the cost of the program to date was $195 million. The inquiry will hand down its final report by December 21. A new coronavirus cluster has emerged in New South Wales with at least 4 locally acquired cases diagnosed in the state's Southern Highlands area in the space of 24 hours. The cases are understood to all be linked to each other, but authorities haven't been able to trace how the original case acquired their infection. One of the new cases attended Mossvale Public School, while another attended the Southern Highlands Early Childhood Centre, with both sites now closed for cleaning. State health officials have warned anyone in the Mossvale area to be particularly careful to watch for any COVID-19 symptoms. Meanwhile, at least 14 local government areas around Sydney are on alert due to recent cases and positive sewage tests in the region. A leaked text message obtained by news.com.au has revealed that New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian did reach out to Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk in an apparent attempt to end the state's border wars. The text message congratulates Ms Palaszczuk on her election win last week, with Ms Berejiklian writing that she can imagine how difficult that was during a pandemic, and added that she hopes they can work together to get the borders open.
On Sunday evening, I texted her to congratulate her on her election win and said I was keen to talk about borders. I did not hear from her until last night when she sent me a text about the state of origin, which I didn't know whether to be shocked or bemused, frankly, because I'm worried about jobs and I'm worried about people not seeing their families. And she just rubbed in the fact that Queensland won the game. That's fine. I'm sorry?
She just replied with the word Queensland.
No, I don't know what she said. She replied Queensland, a great game, or something to that effect. Right. She didn't mention borders. She didn't mention thanks for the congratulations. So here we are serious about, I don't want to make light of the situation because, yes, we all have fun in sport, but the reality is that people are suffering because the border's there, and we're doing everything we can. And I'm wanting to engage, and I'm appealing to her to engage, to take it seriously, because I know people are suffering and the economy is suffering, and we don't want that to continue.
On Friday, the Queensland leader told reporters that she is always happy to speak to Gladys, and added that it's, quote, misleading for me to go and tell the media that she had phoned me when she did not. But when pressed about the content of the text, Ms Palaszczuk says she wouldn't go into the messages. Last week, Queensland did open their border to the rest of the country, except for those in Victoria and Sydney, with those in regional New South Wales able to enter the Sunshine State as long as they haven't been in the Greater Sydney area for 2 weeks or more before travel. A Melbourne man has been charged with preparing for a foreign interference offence, the first person to be charged under the crime since new national security legislation was introduced in 2018. The 65-year-old appeared in Melbourne's Magistrate Court on Thursday following a year-long investigation by the Counter-Foreign Interference Task Force with involvement from ASIA and the AFP. The man now faces the possibility of up to 10 years in jail if convicted after the operation into his alleged relationship with the Foreign Intelligence Agency. AFP Deputy Commissioner Ian McCartney said foreign interference is, quote, corrupting, deceptive, and goes beyond routine diplomatic influence practiced by governments. The matter remains an ongoing investigation. Mining tycoon Clive Palmer has had his challenge against Western Australia's border ban rejected by the High Court. A number of judges concluded on Friday that the state's quarantine directions and the emergency management law that authorised them did not breach the Constitution, following Palmer's argument that the border directions infringe the guarantee that interstate trade, commerce and intercourse should be absolutely free. WA Premier Mark McGowan welcomed the result as a significant victory, saying in a statement that he will always fight to protect the health of West Australians, and also told reporters in Perth that Palmer would likely be liable for hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal costs. WA's case was supported by other states and territories, which argued that it was entitled to a tighter border in part due to geographical differences, and after months of backing Palmer's challenge, the federal government pulled out of the case under sustained pressure, with Scott Morrison then asking Palmer to drop the case. McGowan recently announced that WA will reopen to all states and territories from November 14, with some restrictions remaining for residents of New South Wales and Victoria. New Zealanders have voted not to legalise cannabis in a referendum following the country's election last month. The yes vote finished with 48.4% of the vote, trailing the no vote on 58.7%, which The Guardian reports was just a 67,662 vote difference out of 2.9 million. Support for legalising cannabis ranged between 30 to 50% in the lead up to the October election, even seeing the country's PM admitting to using it.
Judith Collins, have you ever used cannabis?
No, I have not.
Jacinda Ardern, have you ever used cannabis?
Yes, I did, a long time ago.
Voters had been asked to decide whether they would want to pass a bill that would legalise cannabis and regulate how it is used and sold. Finally tonight, scientists have discovered a bizarre hell planet where it rains rocks and where the ocean is made out of lava. CBS News reports that the planet, which is hundreds of light years away and named K2141b, oceans are made out of molten lava, winds reach supersonic speeds, and rain is made out of rocks, scientists calling it one of the most extreme ever discovered. The scorching hot part of the planet reaches temperatures of over 5,400 degrees Fahrenheit or almost 3,000 degrees Celsius, which is hot enough to not only melt rocks, but to vaporise them. It's led to a number of people now saying that Earth is not all that bad compared to this planet. And that is 6 News for this Sunday evening. You can stay up to date with all the latest developments on the US election and all the other news on our social pages. Just search 6 News AU to find us. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Have a good night.